Hello, this is the Brian of London moment, brought to you by the Glazov Gang. You may think America is a nation of immigrants, and successful absorption of waves of new arrivals from far-off lands is America's big trick. But when it comes to doing the job properly, I'd say it's Israel first. I once sat down at a fish restaurant in the Israeli port city of Ashkelon with the leader of Belgium's Vlaams Belang. If the press write about the Vlaams Belang, they'd almost always call them far-right or anti-immigration because they're proud Flemish nationalists. Belgium is a somewhat complex, invented country with a strong tension between native French speakers, native Flemish speakers, and, today, one of the most pious and troublesome Muslim populations in Europe. As we ate fish, a fish good enough for Jehovah, I'd say, with the boats of the marina bobbing up and down behind us, we discussed what good immigration looks like. Talking in these terms, my Flemish friends were not really anti-immigration. If people wanted to come and settle in Belgium, appreciate Belgian customs, drink Belgian beer, eat Belgian waffles, put mayonnaise on their double-fried Belgian frites, that's fries for you Americans, and learn either French or Flemish, then Vlaams Belang's leaders are friendly. I had just explained to them how, starting with 200,000 immigrants in just 1 year, 1990, Israel had enacted one of the most spectacular population absorptions in living history. In 1989, the population of Israel stood at 4.5 million. That is Jews and Arabs combined, remember? As the Iron Curtain fell, Soviet Jews flooded into Israel, and Israel absorbed almost 4.5% of its own population in that first year. Over the next decade, from 1990 to 2000, almost 1 million immigrants came to Israel, as the population grew from 4.5 million to 6.3 million in 2000. That is a 20% growth from immigrants in a decade. Israel also made one astonishing choice decades before we finally regained our independence. We chose to revive our indigenous Hebrew language. Whilst the modern Ivrit we speak is obviously very closely related to the language of the Torah, our Bible, to the point that even I can look at the 2,000-year-old Dead Sea Scrolls and read the words and recognize phrases, modern spoken Hebrew needed to be revived deliberately. This was a conscious choice of those who reformed our modern state in our indigenous homeland. Thankfully, we decolonized ourselves and shrugged off a language like, say, Yiddish, which we'd invented in the diaspora. We avoided English or French, which would have instantly painted Jews as the colonials instead of as a returning indigenous people. It is unthinkable to have an indigenous revival without holding on to an indigenous language. And we shook off all foreign colonial languages which were being used here, like Arabic or English or French. There are many sorts of immigration. Low-skilled immigration that drives down wages for unskilled work is obviously a specific economic problem, and the open borders people always downplay or deny this. Over the years, Israel has taken a complete range of immigrants. The state took Jews from all over Arab lands with widely disparate educational and economic backgrounds. To some extent, it was probably the mix that kept the country balanced. The decade of Russian immigration came with high-skilled, highly educated people, and for a while the country did have way too many concert violinists. Nevertheless, decades on from the Russian flood, Israel is still coherent and growing stronger in its indigenous identity. We argue endlessly, because we're Jews, over the details like whether shops in Tel Aviv should open on Shabbat, but the big picture, Jewish values and culture, is set in stone. When Jerusalem University won't play Hatikva, our national anthem, for fear of upsetting some Arab students, the country, aside from the usual far-left idiots, is very clear. That's not right. But what no country can withstand, and which Europe seems to be committing suicide with today, is the uncontrolled and completely uncontrollable acceptance of al-Hijra, Islamic immigration with the intent of founding an Islamic state, of bringing Islamic practices and forcing the acceptance of public and political displays of Islam upon a host nation, of demanding dimitude and of squashing fundamental freedoms and rights of other nations in order to drive toward Islamization of societies. Israel has resisted that. Israel may even be reaching a point where it fully understands the jihad against us. It was never about a few more square kilometers. It was always about whether Jews can ever be self-governing in a land which was once conquered by jihad for Allah and now recovered and returned to indigenous Jewish control. Only by being sure of its own values and cultures can any civilization hope to bring in and absorb others from outside. Thanks for listening. I'm Brian of London. You can follow me on Twitter as Brian of London. And thanks for listening. And please support the Glazov Gang at jamieglazov.com and make sure you're subscribed to this Glazov Gang YouTube channel.